So we're going to look at two different players and how they play Troll Warlord in different playstyles. This hero is growing massively in popularity, so it will eventually trickle down into the lower brackets. Like, he's mostly popular in the higher brackets, like in Divine and Immortal. But at the start, he initially intended on going mid lane, but they ended up swapping lane with Slark. And Slark is laning against Batrider at the moment, but they end up switching up the lanes again here, and they respond accordingly. After about a minute and a half of laning on bottom, he swaps back to mid lane, which now it's Windranger against Troll Warlord. So you'll notice that he will attack a creep there, then he used his Whirling Axes, the ranged one, to get the last hit onto the creep. So pretty much he focuses very heavily on harassing Windranger with right clicks, because he doesn't have a nuke like a spell that does a huge amount of damage, because the Whirling Axes is pretty small amount of damage, so you have to keep caring about like right clicking in order to harass. And every time that there's a creep not in range to last hit, he will be harassing the Windranger back. Now in the case when Windranger hits level 3, she will start using her power shot actively to try and harass. So this is up to Troll Warlord to try and dodge this. So now we see the first power shot come out, and Troll Warlord walks out of the way of it. And you see he's getting very favorable trades here, and now he's got hit by the second power shot here. But the third power shot comes out here now for the range creep. As you see, he doesn't stand right on top of where the range creep is. These are pretty small stuff, but they're very expected of what Immortal players, and even down to Ancient, you see this happening constantly. So now Windranger gets a double damage rune, she activates it, and he's after taking harass here from a power shot. Now he doesn't have a lot of regen left, he just has one tango and a fairy fire. So what he opts to do is pretty much just go into the jungle here and farm this camp. This essentially ends up lasting long enough to be able to wait out the power rune. As you see, when Windranger shows here again, she's no power rune left in her, there's no DD. At the same time, while he was doing that, he placed an observer ward over here onto this cliff, as you can see, this one. And this is just to see any rotations that might be coming in on top of him. So now Troll Warlord has hit level 8, and Windranger decided to go for a gank in another lane. So instantly he decides to push down this tower a bit, and he nukes the creep wave. In order for Windranger to nuke the creep wave back, she has to use her power shot, which actually costs a lot of mana. So as you see here, with the feather sacks building up, he actually can do a huge amount of damage to this tower. So in total, he did around 65-70% damage to this tower, which was full health before he started attacking it there. So what he does after this is kind of interesting. He decided to like cancel his teleport there, and instead he ends up just pushing this creep wave instead. So he keeps pushing, he does have neutral camp here, and he pushes again, knowing that Windranger is kind of not that great at clearing creep waves quickly. And straight off of that, at now 10 minutes, he's going for the bounty runes for a fight. So as you see, he's waiting here patiently for someone to come close, and he finds Batrider. He just basically hits his ult and starts right clicking this guy until he gets a root, and finally Rubik gets a lift on top of that. Now Windranger ends up focus firing, and here at this point he could probably just run away and be fine, especially with this sprout blocking Windranger, but he decides to keep fighting here, and he actually gets punished for it, where Windranger's focus fire brings him down low enough so that Lion's Finger can finish him off. So now we're looking at Troll Warlord B, which is rank 420, and he's going to the safe lane this time, and he's starting with 6 tangos, and he ends up doing a pretty large amount of harass here, as well as getting the bounty rune at the very start. And he pretty much ends up starting with his Quelling Blade here. As you see, he cuts down a tree here, he also cuts down a tango, and with another tree and another Quelling Blade. So he very obsessively cuts down these trees here while he's lasting his creeps in lane, as well as getting like most of the last hits here as well. And a lot of the reason why people cut down these trees is really just that offlaners start abusing it. So you see here, he starts like stacking up the creep wave. He doesn't want the creeps going under the tower, and because he now has like a big massive wave now, his own wave is like doubling up as well. And this is pretty much what the Nature's Prophet support is doing, which is kind of weird, but they end up pushing the wave like really hard and started a double wave. And off of this double wave is just where they start to go try and play aggressive here. And like you see the amount of creeps that are in lane so early here, and they just try to push down this tower, and we even have the treants pushing as well. So at this point, if the offlaners decide to go and attack Troll Warlord, they will aggro all of these creeps, which is not necessarily what they want to do, because they'll actually end up taking more damage from the creeps than they will if Troll Warlord even was to attack him back. So he ended up kind of getting cut out here by a nice little shards here, but because the creep wave does so much damage and next one's even coming in here, it's making it very hard for the offlaner. This is not often very done because like you don't want to give the offlaners that much experience, but they just took advantage of what was happening with the creep wave at the time, and it's pretty nice to be adaptive based on what's happening. So coming up to 9 minutes now, he ends up pushing the creep wave really hard here, and Slardar is kind of under his own tower, and Nature's Prophet comes as well, which is the position 5, and you end up pushing this tower with the feather stacks. As you saw, similarly, the previous guy was doing the same thing, but he was doing it maybe like about 30 or 60 seconds earlier. The item build on both of these heroes as well is quite similar, except now we see that this guy has picked up phase boots, which is that little bit different, and he also has a broom handle really early, which is a very preferable item on this hero, especially trying to like get kills or to farm faster. So now that the Slardar has hit level 6, he ends up going in him here, and we have Shaman as well. And now Troll Warlord does have his ulti skilled up here at level 8. He ends up using the wand charges and pretty much backs off. The enemy has to, because if they can't crowd control him and like keep him stunned for the entire duration, he can just hit his ultimate and heal back up with lifesteal. So at this point they're kind of like cautious of this, but now that Tusk has come as well, it's much harder for Troll to be able to fight into this. Even with his ultimate here, he ends up getting bashed on the first hit, nearly ends up getting a kill here onto Slardar. Oh, Slardar just gets away, but the Troll ends up kind of getting like picked after 3 heroes there. So now back to the rank 16 Troll Warlord. He ends up getting, keeps this Iron Talon and farms the jungle. I don't think he uses the active on it, which is kind of weird. You know, you forget to use the active. Even rank 16 is forgetting. But what is very noticeable with this player is that every time during the laning stage, he would flying out his items to him. He decided to go Treads instead, and he got a Claymore, so he's going rushing a Shadow Blade. So his idea right now is just to farm up as quick as he can here, finish off this Shadow Blade, and they decide to go for a smoke straight off of this. So Faceless Void has a Maelstrom already at 13 minutes, so they end up starting with a Puck ult and a Silence, and now all Troll Warlord has to do is just get one root. And once he's got one root, because he has 11 feather stacks stacked up, it's very easy for him to keep going and killing this Faceless Void. So straight after this, he decides to push the tower and tank the tower a little bit. But Wind Ranger comes. I don't think she's DD'd, that's like a replay bug. But basically, he was trying to force in like a rotation from someone and maybe fight them. But he ends up dying as a result of this. Kind of an overcommit. But as you see how big of an overcommit this was, there was actually 4 heroes on top that probably teleported in roughly around the time that like Faceless Void got ganked initially. So it was a somewhat big of an overcommit and a bad awareness of positioning. So now coming up to 15 minutes, they see the Chrono being used on mid, so he goes and pushes down this tower, and you see that there's other heroes with the Faceless Void. So that's around the time that they start to push down this tower, which was pretty straightforward. Straight after that, he ends up deciding to move down to mid lane, see if he can find his Faceless Void with his Shadow Blade, and he ends up finding Batrider and Line, but they had a sentry down, so he ends up getting caught here, and his team decide to go in and commit in on top of this fight. So Troll just clicks his ulti straight away so that he doesn't die, and he gets pretty much a lot of damage out there onto Faceless Void, which ends up dying straight afterwards. But this fight ends up turning out to be pretty bad for them, and as you'll end up seeing here, that pretty much 4 heroes die, and Rubik ends up dying here soon afterwards as well. So it was pretty much a team wipe off of just literally running down through the river and get caught by a sentry. Something that's pretty small but punished very hard by the enemy team. So he's after getting a haste rune here now, and he has his ultimate. He also bought a Chrysalis, which is to really go for damage. He ends up finding Batrider here, which in reality is actually one of the best heroes that you can pick off first, because he's their main initiator. They do have Faceless Void for initiation and Line, but Batrider is playing to go for Blink Dagger, which really he shuts down Batrider before he can really use any like valuable spells for a team fight. And this is often also done on heroes like Earthshaker, where you try to pick off the Earthshaker before a team fight, but Batrider also plays that kind of similar role. So for the past 3 minutes or so after dying top, he ended up spending his time just like farming other lanes and jungle, and now he's after coming bottom to help for a kill onto Faceless Void and put pressure on this lane. As you see, when they're grouped up, they're kind of going for this like early push strategy, but Troll is making sure that he's end up getting enough farm here, and he can't really like catch any kills, and just starts like ancient farming a stack that you end up finding that some support or maybe even Shadow Fiend stacked for him. So he decides to go back on top for the first time in about 5 minutes. It's like 15 minutes now, and as you'll see from the network chart, he's at pretty much the top, and he's spent a lot more time farming this game, and he's also going for that good old battlefury. So we have Tusk and we have 4 heroes going in on him now, chasing him down behind the trees. So there's not really much you can do about this, and you can see why he probably wants to avoid top lane at all times, because it's so easy for them to kind of just dive a tower and kill him when he's there in his own, regardless if he has his ultimate or not. So there's a fight after breaking out here, and Troll has actually finished up his Battle Fury and his Vambrace he's got, as well as a neutral item. So he joins this fight pretty late here, but he ends up finding Shadow Shaman at the back. He ends up getting Hexed here at the start and Shackle. So all of the crowd control that Shaman has is pretty much being used up now. So Troll can pretty easily just run him down, especially with the phase boots, and he uses a whirling axes to get that extra burst of damage just before Shaman dies. So a really simple little pick off, and not really too much about it, and he just pushes down this mid tower straight off of that. So objectively, that was like actually a really nice rotation that other players wouldn't have even tried, and they would have just sat in the jungle. So we have the enemy team showing on mid lane, and the Wind Ranger and Faceless Void is after showing here. And Troll Warlord was just checking items there. Faceless Void now has his BKB finished, and Troll has also picked up Ring of Aquila as his neutral item, as well as a Javelin here. So you see Batrider coming in here. It looks like he's farming initially, but he actually ends up catching Troll Warlord here. And we have a Chrono that comes in as well, and a Hex. So Troll Warlord, at this point you probably think this guy is dead, like 50-50, is he gonna survive? But he gets disrupted by Shadow Demon, and he ends up being able to come back into this and press his ult, just right click the Void, which forces the Faceless Void away. So pretty much he's tanked the Chronosphere here, and they end up getting 2 nice pickoffs, and Faceless Void's BKB used up as well. And the reason why that ended up turning out so well was because Wind Ranger actually teleported top before that fight started. But now you see here's a power shot coming in, which gives some vision into Roshan, as well as that just kind of playing against Batrider for Rosh is kind of like a little bit scary as well. So the enemy end up just after taking Roshan there, and Wind Ranger got the Aegis, and Troll decides to solo her here, and he ends up getting shackled onto a neutral creep, ends up dying straight away and buys back. Kind of a tilt here, but he ends up running down into mid, farms a creep, and he goes farming another one, so he's going up into a really risky spot, kind of like throwing the game almost here, and eventually he ends up kind of like keeping calm a little bit, but Shadow Demon gets caught off guard here, and now they're just like backing off. So it's looking pretty bleak at this moment, but the Rubik here ends up catching a really nice Batrider ult, which he stole just from before, and he ends up getting Wind Ranger here, and Wind Ranger just uses her Wind Run before she dies. So now when she respawns after the Aegis, she won't have Wind Run again, which ends up leading to a pretty easy kill here for Troll Warlord. That's a lot of their damage. Now Faceless Void doesn't have his Chrono either, and Faceless Void goes down. So now their 2 main damage dealers are pretty much dead at this point. That's a pretty advantageous like trade overall there, and his buyback actually never really got punished at all. So Wind Ranger's after getting caught here by a Puck ultimate, and Troll can really easily finish her off here, and he ends up picking up his MKB now, which is like after the Wind Ranger kill, pushes down the tower pretty straightforward. But the enemy ends up taking a really stupid fight. They use Batrider ult, they use Chrono as well at the same time, and they don't even kill anyone with either of those spells, and Slark ends up being able to survive through this, so with a really good disruption by Shadow Demon. And pretty much now the enemy team have nothing that they can fight with, so they literally just push towers now, and there's nothing the enemy team can do, especially without Chrono. That's really their only big team fight ultimate. So Troll Warlord also, when he was building the MKB, he disassembled his Mask of Madness, and he got the Quarterstaff out of the Mask of Madness. As well as that, in the last couple of fights, you'll end up seeing that the experience has massively bounced back towards their team, which is really a big factor, which helps you kind of like make it easier to win games as well, especially with like when you're much more levels ahead of the enemy. So Troll ends up getting got on here by a Batrider ult into a Wind Ranger ult. The Shackle Shot doesn't end up hitting here, but regardless, the Troll has ended up pretty much turning this on himself. He's life-stealing through it, and Wind Rangers also has not much evasion either with the MKB on Troll. So at this point it's pretty hard for even Faceless Void to do anything. Like with his Chrono out by himself, he doesn't have enough damage, so they pretty much end up like finishing a lane of racks here for based off of like constant mistakes from the enemy. So just because someone rages in your match, it's not necessarily that you need to give up. So Troll's team basically end up finding a kill here on Faceless Void with no buyback, and it ends up being pretty easy for them just to push objectives, and they pretty much just win the game off of this sort of stuff, off of enemy mistakes and bad coordination. And just by sticking with his team and doing some pretty straightforward stuff, they end up propelling themselves ahead, especially on the experience side of things. So he's finished up a Yasha here, and we have PL showing on bottom. So while he's waiting for his teammates to get closer, instead of running in on PL by himself, he just farms that ancient camp. So it's really efficient movement there. And you can see PL, he waits for his teammates to go in and initiate, because Troll Warlord without a Shadow Blade or a Blink Dagger is not going to be very good at initiating on any hero. So he needs to wait around for his allies. So again, he just pushes this tower, and as you can see with their draft here with Shadow Fiend and the Nature's Prophet, they're really going for this early push game. Troll has actually managed to farm insanely quick. He has his Sanjin Yasha finish, and he also has a DD rune. As you see now, once he catches PL as singled out on his own without any illusion, you'll see how easy it is for Troll to actually end up killing this guy. So you see here with the right clicks, and now he's rooted. So he's basically like perma rooted here, and he can't do anything. He can't doppelganger or anything. So it's pretty simple for Troll to finish off a PL, because a PL takes so long to come online. Now the enemy do have an Aegis. They killed Roshan, and Troll just walks up onto the high ground tanking the spells, as we saw like in the previous replay, where the Troll like kind of stands in the front tanking like the Chrono and so forth, and Troll can just hit his ultimate and regen all the way back up the health with his lifesteal. Now Shadow Fiend ends up catching his ult and perfectly times it so that this Ember has no chance to even, like, the Aegis was basically rendered useless there. Now Troll Warlord ends up being able to go in again now, but he doesn't have his ultimate, so he has to be a little bit careful. Yet even when all the crowd control comes down on top of him, it's lasting way less because of the status resist from the Sanjin Yasha. They end up pretty much catching heroes one by one here and getting like pretty much 3 kills, and they go push high ground again here. And Troll Warlord ended up buying a Reaver just before pushing high ground. This pretty much makes it even harder to kill him if they end up going on him. And really what he wants to do is survive with at least like 1% health. Because if he even survives with 1%, he can just press his ultimate and regen like pretty much most of it back. And the enemy can't really do anything to deal with it. So this guy has ended up winning the game more so through economy. The battlefury didn't necessarily do that much other than just allow him to farm really quickly, which his team was making lots of space, which is more of a classical position one hero where you farm very heavily throughout the game. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more Dota content like this, make sure you subscribe. And if you want to see me play some games of Dota, you can check out my Twitch stream where I'll be streaming there kind of like regularly from now on.